All right, Ambush. Today we are joined by an acoustic pop artist who has been a singer-songwriter for about 20 years now, but it is only now that he is just getting to releasing his debut album coming up in the new year. And today we're going to be talking about a couple of the singles that are going to be leading us there. And of course, I speak today about my guest, JP Sunga. How's it going today, JP?
I am fantastic, man. How are you?
Ooh, having myself a gorgeous day. The sun is shining, so I cannot complain.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Hey, and also very awesome that I get to dive behind some amazing music. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I'm very excited to dive behind your music here with you. And of course, I mentioned you're working your way towards your debut album, your debut EP, released all the way back in 2005. So you took a little bit of time in between these points to, take some time to raise a family, live life, all of those good things. But of course, sometimes those dreams, those passions, they come knocking again. So what exactly was that moment, that thought that got you where it's time to finally get back into the studio, to finally release some more of my own music?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of a couple of things. One is an unfulfilled life goal, which was to actually release a body of work that would represent me as an artist. And then the other thing would be aging. It was actually, I was approaching a milestone birthday, and I'm proud to say that was 40. And I really was faced with that kind of, realization that, and I don't want to make it sound like too gloom or anything, but you kind of realize that life isn't infinite. Like it's going to end at some point, and you can't just wait around forever for you to fulfill these things that you've always wanted to do. And so it became almost a necessity for my soul that I needed to fulfill this goal. And I obviously, at this point in my life, any type of decisions like this don't just affect me, it affects like 4 other people, because I have 3 kids and I'm married. So my wife was pivotal in that decision, and just talking to her about wanting to fulfill that dream. And she also knows like my journey in music and how I had to kind of put it on hold and everything. And so she gets it. And even though we're trying to provide for 3 kids and we're trying to balance other life priorities and work, she knew how important it was to me. And she just said, we'll find a way. You got to do this. And so that green light was everything. And that started off the whole chain of, okay, well, let's, there's a producer that I've always wanted to work with. And Sam, that's Sam Helfer. He's my producer for this album and has produced all the singles that I've released so far. So lining him up, and then also carving out the time. It's busy when you're trying to raise 3 young kids and balance a full-time job. So I don't get a lot of time to do it. But instead of all this time kind of letting that be the excuse, oh, there's no time, just saying if that's what it is, that's what it is. We're going to make the best of it. And the fact is, we're still chipping away at it. And so it's still working towards the goal. So realizing kind of like that's okay was cool. And so with that little time, like again, a couple hours per week, sometimes every other week, sometimes once a month, we've been able to produce some really, I guess, meaningful songs to me that I'm so incredibly proud of. So we've made a lot from so little.
Wow. So it's sort of that what you hear with a lot of goal setting. With some people say is like it's important to set a big goal, but you have to not get disappointed by the goal or like off put by like the loftiness of the goal. It's you have to create the steps in the process. It's you have to build it. And that sort of sounds like exactly what this has been was it's like, okay, debut album. How do we get there? Got to find a producer. All right, we got to pick some songs. We got to go from there. So this leads into, of course, the recording process, which you mentioned was sort of taken in little bits and pieces. So were you able to get inside of an actual studio to be able to make all of this work? Were these songs that you have written throughout the years? Were these new tracks that are sort of more recent to you? Take us behind sort of these things.
Yeah, I'd love to. So the songs, actually, or the album itself, I'm almost treating it like it's a legacy piece. It's at this point in my life, it's not about me trying to get that record deal. It's not about me trying to be the next pop star. It's about leaving my mark in this world. It's about leaving my children something that will speak to them like years after I'm not even around anymore. And so each song is like it's like a love letter to them. It has a message that they're young right now, so they may not even really fully understand it, but at some point it'll make sense to them. And again, even if I'm not around, it'll be something that they can carry with them. And it's a piece of me, right? So the songs, as a result of that sort of theme for the album, it ends up being a collection of songs that I have written from long ago, or even songs that I've started writing, couldn't finish, and now with my new lens and perspective as an older guy and a father, I have now been able to finish these songs. And then there's songs that I'm writing from scratch now, which I actually at one point during my hiatus, part of the reason for the hiatus was because of a writer's block. So there were times where I thought that I was just never going to write again, and writing was like one of my fortes. It was my thing, and so to lose that was such a demotivator. Like I almost gave up. So being in this sort of creative zone now, and then being able to write all these new songs for the album, it's been I don't know how to say it. It's just it's like it was meant to be. So the recording process, going back to your question, I have been able to go into the studio. So Sam runs his own studio, Hillifer Studios, out of Kitchener, Ontario. And prior to COVID hitting, we were going in and recording. But once COVID did come around, it almost kind of just went full stop. And then we started trying to do things virtually, but that wasn't as efficient. There's something about the energy that goes on when you're face to face with, like, it's just the artist and the producer kind of just bouncing ideas back and forth, and things just kind of happen and roll along. Where virtually it can, but it still isn't the same. And then I'm finding that I'm also having to type just encyclopedias of emails just to kind of explain one thought that I'm trying to get across, one detail that I want changed in a recording or in an arrangement. And it's so taxing. And then also because everything else is online, like the last thing you want to be doing after work hours is, again, being online and trying to be creative and artistic. And it's been draining, if I'm being honest. The past, since March 2020, it's not been an easy road. Meanwhile, we've been able to release and record 3 other songs during that time, somehow. but it took a lot. It took a lot of persistence and just really staying committed and finding ways to stay passionate about the process, the creative process. So the the recording experience has been a roller coaster so far, and we still have a lot of work to go. So there's still about half the album to finish up, and we've got our work cut out for us for sure.
All right. Well, very excited to hear that there's still some magic to be created. And even though there is some challenges, you are adapting, you are overcoming, you are conquering. You're releasing some incredible music at the same time. So before we dive into a couple of these tracks, I'd love to know, what was it like to, after that hiatus, to finally release yourself back out into the world?
It's an amazing feeling. It's just that if you've had something that has just been, picking at your brain for so long and just kind of haunting over you, and you just felt like you haven't been able to tap into that or fulfill that, to see it actually come out and see a product, and then see the reactions that causes, it's an incredible feeling. It's so fulfilling. It feels right. It feels like I made the right choice, and it makes me not regret the fact that I never gave up on that dream.
Fantastic. I love to hear it. And I'm glad you didn't give up either, because as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm loving these tracks, and I would love to dive behind some of these 2021 singles, because you've released two of them, one a little more recently, but one to kick off the year, which I'd love to dive into first with In My Bones. I love the way that this song just sort of builds and then pulls back and then builds and then pulls back. It's just sort of like, I just love the energy that's encapsulated inside of the song. So what exactly does In My Bones mean to you, JP?
In My Bones is almost like the centerpiece of the album project. So I mentioned earlier about it being like a collection of lessons that I want to pass on to my kids. One of those lessons is actually teaching them that no matter what or where they are in life, if they have a dream and they put in the work, that it can happen. Anything can happen so long as you put your mind, your heart, and your soul into it. And it's what I'm doing with the album. It's a dream that I had. And despite being older now and all the reasons not to do it, like financially, is this really the most responsible thing a parent should be doing with their money? And like time wise, and also like there's things that come with aging too, where I'm starting to doubt my singing abilities. Maybe I don't have it anymore. It's not as strong, not as practiced. And there's all these voices of doubt and things that are just like I've thrown at myself for the past, like ever since like throughout that hiatus. It's always been like, forget it. It's too late. You're too old. There's nothing left in you. And all of those voices just kind of like, pegging you down. And it's a matter of turning those voices down, ignoring them, squashing them, and just going for it. And as a result of actually doing those actions and being in that whole concept, was birthed In My Bones. So In My Bones is one of the songs that was written from scratch during this project. And it's inspired by everything I was literally going through at that moment. It's just that it's that feeling of being able to say, like, I can do this. I am going to do this, and it's going to be awesome. And and just ignoring all of those voices of doubt.
Well, it's as artists, as creatives, and even just as human beings, we can be our toughest critics.
Oh,
And it's just exactly that is you get inside of your head. And even no matter like you could have 100 different people tell you, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is the best song you've ever made. Like, this is incredible. I can't wait for you to release this. And then like all it takes is for you to like lay in bed for like one night and be like, my voice has changed. Like,
yeah.
but even though it's like it could change in a good way, but like to you it's different, and then suddenly like that's just like an entire reason. We're like, oh my good, like can I still? And like even though like I'm telling you this song is amazing, but like in the moment it can be so difficult.
Yeah, it's so true. As artists, I think it's just something that's in us, especially for us who are perfectionists. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be great. I go through things in my head, like in real time in gigs, where I'm telling myself, like, you're going to forget that next line. They're not liking this. It's like, and like, it's real, and it's a little scary. Like I still have to find a way to really like manage that and deal with that. But yeah, there's definitely some real things that I have and I am still struggling through when it comes to that. But In My Bones really kind of just captures it, like overall, the idea of being able to be on the other side of that and just going for it.
Hey, and it's just like the sound explodes through with that once the chorus hits, you're just exploding through that doubt and just screw it. I'm going for it, baby.
I'm glad you brought that up. So like it's and I credit you. That's awesome, because some people don't pay attention to those type of details, but in the music that I create, and especially with Sam, my producer, when we come up with the arrangements, we're not just coming up with instruments that are just gonna whatever fill up the background. There's meaning behind that, and exactly what you said. There's a reason and an intention why it sounds like that in the chorus, and it feels like you're just busting through doors. Like it's yeah. So like you're actually the first person to actually bring that up. So kudos to you. you know your stuff.
I like to listen, so I'm very glad that I can hear that. And of course, you also, one thing that like I've noticed in a lot of the other songs, especially the new song as well too, it's very much a different approach to the song, but every like instrument, every sort of like thing has its time to shine, its focus, just like we just talked about, where it's everything has a purpose inside of it. And like one thing that I definitely love that significantly has a purpose inside of Dirty Water, your new track, is that choir vibe that like rises up behind you at the end of it, and like, oh my goodness, it's powerful, this track.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, so the you're like that's huge. That means everything to me, because I think this single in particular, Dirty Water, compared to all the other ones, we had I don't want to say a lot more challenges, but it felt like that, because when Sam and I get to the nitty gritty of the production and the arrangement, we are meticulous. And there was a specific texture that I was looking for this song. And so when you talk about having like each instrument shine at its own time, all of those are details that we were completely intentionally building into the arrangement. And we had I don't even know how many iterations of the arrangement that we built it and then we scrapped it and then we built it again and then we scrapped it. And it was just because we weren't getting it like it until finally, after tinkering around enough, we were able to find that sweet spot. And yeah, and like listening to it now, it's exactly and even better than I had dreamed it would be. The choir. So this song is very. Um, it's not your typical track. I say that with pride. Like I wasn't trying to like recreate. Um, I don't know, like another pop song that's out there on the radio right now. I was really borrowing from a lot of different um, textures of instruments, and then kind of bringing that together. And I don't even really know what genre to categorize it as, but that doesn't matter to me. It was just something that it's what I envisioned in my head, and I've always envisioned a choir being on it. But it's like a choir. How would you put a choir on this kind of like acoustic guitar, kind of folky, poppy, whatever it is vibe? And I'm like, no, like I hear it in my head. Like it has to be done. And also because of what we're talking about in the song, there's something about hearing a gospel choir kind of reiterate that message that really kind of brings it home. And yeah, and so we went for it, and I was so lucky that when I reached out to Stems Music, who I'm a huge fan of, um, they loved the song, and they were super excited to work on it. And when it all just kind of started coming together, it just felt so right. And yeah, they did such an amazing job on it. So I'm so happy that it turned out the way it did.
Fantastic. And like I mentioned, I love it too. And you say that it helped to bring the message of the song and truly take it to that next level. So what exactly is that message?
Yeah. So Dirty Water is about renewal. It's about giving yourself a second chance. So when I say that, it's really like a lot of us, as we journey through our lives, we tend to collect emotional baggage. Sometimes it's from good experiences, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's from bad experiences. We may not realize we're collecting these things, but we do. Like they're there, and they come up once in a while and kind of haunt us. And I say this from personal experience. So there's there's something about being able to look back on your past instead of running away from it and sweeping it under the rug or whatever, just pretending like you're fine and everything, like nothing happened. But actually facing it head on and accepting it for what it is, even if like all the bad stuff, accepting that for what it is as part of your journey and how it made you who you are today. And then being able to just let that go and not continue to carry it with you. It's almost like that saying, don't let your past define you. It's that. It's being able to say, okay, that was before. This is now. I have a chance to do things differently. It's a second chance. It's renewal. It's a chance for redemption. It's just yeah. So like the whole idea of dirty water is it's using that analogy of cleansing and of washing away, and yeah. And so like a lot of the lyrics are very poetic. It's how I write, and yeah. I really took a lot of like things about water, and I really weaved that into the lyrics, and yeah, and I think if to go like really deep into like the why and behind the song, it's actually inspired by my wife's grandmother, who unfortunately we lost earlier this year, and it was inspired by how she led her life, and she was a single mother of 8. And raising her family in India in poverty, and being able to come out from that experience, because there's a lot of stories that we've come to learn over the years from her, and what she's endured. But for anyone who had met her, you would never have known, because she just exuded this absolute pure joy and this love for life, and just inspired everyone around her to be so positive. And yeah, it was just so infectious, and it was so inspiring to see, and especially knowing everything that she's gone through. And so it was almost kind of like that, like taking that, like her example, and then putting it into a song. And then sorry, I know I'm going on forever, but the one important layer here is that there's actually one specific story that she did share with us. And it was when because she was poor, she didn't always have like shoes. And to provide for her family, she would often be selling food on the streets. And there was flooding a lot in that area. And so she would start to get like scars, and it'd almost be like an infection around like her feet. And then that sort of kind of started coming up her leg. And meanwhile, she's just trying to, provide for her family, and she's not telling any of her kids what's going on. She's just kind of acting like everything is okay, not giving them anything to worry about, until finally she couldn't do it anymore. And she had to go see somebody. And at that point, she was at a hospital, and they had diagnosed her with leprosy. And at that time, leprosy was not a thing that can be cured. So this was devastating, because, well, one, she was the sole provider for all of these children. And then two, she always had dreams of one day possibly immigrating to Canada and then bringing her kids so that they can have a better life. And there would be no way she would pass a medical with leprosy. So this was just the worst news. And she was in the courtyard of that hospital, and for whatever reason felt drawn to approach some random man, and just like completely tell him everything that was in her heart at that moment about how, this couldn't be true. They said I had leprosy. There's no cure. What am I going to do? And this guy had no idea who she was. And he just looked her in the eye, and he actually said these words, "Woman, let the dirty water flow." And there's a lot more to that story. But he did say, like, there's somebody you can see, maybe he can help. She ended up seeing that person. That person too was like, "There's no cure. I'm so sorry. You can try this cream or whatever, but there's really no cure for this." A few weeks later, she was rid of leprosy, and she came to Canada. Like, we're here. It's like these are things that have happened. She lived, and she did just pass this year, but she led a long and wonderful life. But yeah, so those words, "let the dirty water flow," those are the words that I actually used in the chorus, and that's the title of the song. So there's so many layers to this song, and it's so much meaning to me and my wife and my family, and such an important lesson, and also my little way of helping her carry on her legacy for her great-grandchildren, because she was an important part of our lives, and I want my kids to also remember how important she was to us.
Wow. That's amazing, first off. Secondly, do not apologize for the length of that answer, because like you mentioned, a lot went into this song, and
Yeah.
that is absolutely incredible, and an incredibly powerful and driven woman behind inspiring that song as well. Not just to be able to raise 8 children, but to also be able to immigrate and have all of them, to raise them, and it's my goodness, that is Whoo! That is a story, and I thank you for sharing it with us. That
Thank
is,
you for asking. Thank you.
wow, that's incredible. And one thing that you mentioned there is passing on the message to your children. And that's sort of, you mentioned earlier, sort of with your music too, sort of leaving an ideas for your children, sort of leaving a legacy for your children as well. And one thing that I really love about the music video for Dirty Water is you actually included one of your children inside of this music video too. So what was it like to sort of film the music video with one of your sons sort of paralleling you inside of it?
Yeah. He's actually my only son. So he's my eldest. So I've got a boy and then two younger girls after that. And it was fantastic. It was actually hilarious because he on set he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm on JP Sunga's video," and I'm like, buddy, that's daddy." But he just had he had such a ball just kind of referring to me as JP Sunga. But he had such a good time. Like I remember when we were kind of like the director and I were bouncing ideas about what we would do for the video. There was this idea of somehow portraying that journeying through life and collecting baggage, but like how would I just do that? Like it's almost like you need a way to kind of portray me before to represent like the earlier part of my life journey. And I mean, we're in a pandemic. I'm also very limited in like budget. But I'm thinking, well, let's see, my son Jaren, maybe that might like we could do something there if he's interested. And I had asked, and he was fully on board, so super excited. And yeah, and so it totally worked. And it was a blast. Just like my whole family was actually there behind the scenes. So I don't know how well you know Ontario, but that's actually, it was shot on Manitoulin Island, which is just an absolutely beautiful, magical place. And I've never been there before. Like my family has never been up there. And so we actually just kind of treated it as a little vacation getaway. So yeah, I had the other two, my other two daughters were there. My wife was my makeup artist, my like wardrobe consultant, my whatever, my everything behind the scenes. So yeah, it was like a full family effort there.
That's amazing. Not only did she give you the green light, she's also power behind the makeup, the vibe, the look.
Yeah.
Power couple right here. Power couple.
I do owe her a lot. I do, and I recognize that like none of what I'm doing right now would be possible without her. So yeah.
Hey, shout out to the wife and the supportive, all the supportive significant others out there, because not everybody gets to have that. So when you have somebody that believes in you,
100%, 100%.
Yeah, I love it. And I have loved this conversation so far, JP. I've got one last question for you. Are you ready for it?
I am, man.
All right. So we've talked about the musical progression, some of the energy you've tried to capture inside of these recent singles. And what I would love to know now is this process of returning from hiatus, getting back into the studio, finally releasing yourself back out into the world. How has this time helped you grow as a person, or what has it taught you about yourself?
That's a great question. I think it's really shown me that, and I don't mean to answer this in any sort of conceited way or anything, but it's that feeling, all those times I've ever doubted or have come so close to just giving up on the dream, to see everything and how everything's playing out now, it feels like it feels like I was right to still continue in my path and to not give up. It feels it's taught me that I was wrong. I was wrong about doubting myself. I was wrong that I'm too old to do this. I was wrong about it not being in me anymore, about me not being able to sing anymore. Like, I was wrong. I was wrong. So it's taught me that I still have something to give to the world. It's also taught me to really hone in on my craft. I have been doing this for a long time, perhaps not consistently, but I have. Like, I've always been somewhat writing or trying to write in the background, even while I was raising the kids as they were younger. So it's really taught me to be disciplined in my art, and that's huge. I was just even talking to Sam, my producer, the other week, and he was kind of reminding me about where we started in this project and where we are now, and how different, even how different I am as a producer, as somebody who knows what he wants from his music. Like, I think when we started, Sam was saying, like, like we were kind of just trying things out because you didn't really have like an accurate understanding of what you wanted. And that's true. Like, I was kind of just like open to it, like, whatever, let's just try things, just throw it to the wall, see what sticks. But now it's very specific. Like, I know exactly what I want, and I hope I'm becoming a bit more articulate in how I'm expressing what I want. And the result is just it's refined art. So yeah, those are just some of the key things I've learned. I'm sure there's like a plethora more of other things I can list, but those are some of the main things I'd say.
Perfect. Well, I thank you so much for sharing not just these life lessons, but also the journey of the last couple of years and these brand new singles and the story of this upcoming album. With us here today on the DTP, JP Sunga.
Thank you so much.